Yeah.
Okay, so I'm excited to share. So my hope had been, I created kind of a little curriculum. I'm trying to group the classes in 2 or 3 sections of similar types of abstract art so that we can just kind of get a really wide variety of abstract art. Uh, so we're going to do, we're not doing anything collagey this time, but we are going to talk a little bit about stripey stuff. Because I had hoped that I was going to see some Mark Rothko's in person when I went to the DIA, but the DIA had a automobile show up and they put away the Rothkos. Don't say sorry, it wasn't your fault. So I didn't get to see any Rothkos. But Portland Art Museum has one, has a couple, and I've seen a couple. But we're going to talk about several. We're going to talk about 4 total artists today. But we're going to start with Rothko. And I don't know if you two are probably aware of Rothko because you're on top of things. But I didn't realize that Rothko, when he originally moved to the United States, he was actually an immigrant, that he moved to Portland, Oregon, before he got associated with New York City. So I think that's a really interesting thing. The thing that I find about Rothko's work is he believed that his abstract works were spiritual, that they were a manifestation of metaphysical experiences. He considered his most important work to be a cathedral project that he did. And I always think that that's really, I'm gonna pull up, I got a great video by somebody. Apparently this video kind of makes you want to cry, so get ready. So we're gonna look at some Mark Rothko's. I'm gonna introduce you to another artist and we're gonna do some comparison contrast. 2 contemporary artists that are using similar ideas in kind of a new way. So we're gonna start with our friend Rothko. Let's share the screen. Let's do this one.
Rothko is famous for saying, a painting is not a picture of an experience, it is an experience. When you look at Blue Over Red, you were completely absorbed in its atmosphere, the light it projects, in the color, in the geometry, but you have no references to the external world. It's a very spiritual, even transcendent experience. Blue Over Red is a really outstanding example of Rothko's work from 1953, a critically important period when he pioneered his brand of abstraction. This painting is a fully resolved, intensely chromatic picture that emits light and color. In 1952, Rothko moves to West 53rd Street, just steps away from the Museum of Modern Art. Rothko was profoundly moved by a lot of the artists in MoMA's collection, particularly Matisse. He would have seen 2 great paintings in MoMA's collection, one called The Blue Window, the other called The Red Studio. And both of these are very tonal paintings. The background of The Blue Window is varying shades of blue. The background of The Red Studio is red. And within those backgrounds, objects from the studio seem to hover in this indeterminate kind of space. Rothko is looking at the way he's organized that composition where there's no perspectival devices. I think that Rothko definitely took tremendous interest and lessons from seeing the work of the great French master. In 1953, Rothko painted 16 paintings, and of that group, over half are in museum collections, including the Whitney Museum, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles, the National Gallery in Washington, the Phillips Collection, and the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. When you look at the 16 paintings, they're all very different formats. Rothko wanted you to experience the painting in a bodily sense. Blue Over Red, which is a little over 5 feet, has a very anthropometric reference. When you're standing next to it, because of its format, you feel you're standing in front of another figure. The painting primarily uses very warm colors, yellows, oranges, reds. They have a kind of burning, almost like glowing ember quality to them. Even though he's using thinly applied veils of pigment, you don't get a sense of where the brushwork is. And what emerges are these stacked forms that create a kind of architecture. One of the thinnest bands of the painting, but yet the most dominant, is this beautiful chromatic, almost royal blue. It gives it definition, it gives it a sense of composition. So even though the blue, which is the densest color, is on top, it doesn't weight down the rest of the picture, and the larger bands seem to support it. So it's in a complete harmonious balance. Rothko talks about loving the experience of twilight just before dusk falls and the mystery in that moment. And a lot of his coloration comes from that. And I think there's something about that blue horizon-like quality that does give that sense of a more brooding character, even though it's a very light-filled and joyous painting. And the amount of variety that this artist was able to achieve using a very limited vocabulary of form and color really reduced painting to its essence.
Woo, that was loud. I'm gonna pull up artist blue over red. I actually one of my favorite paintings when I went to the Detroit Institute of Art was actually a Matisse painting as well. And I was surprised because I tend to not be attracted to that kind of work necessarily, but there's just something perfect about the composition of it. You can't deny it, you know. Hold on, there's like 12 and a half different. Is it? I just want to look at the freaking painting from a direction that we can actually look at it though. So these, of course, has to have it like a billion. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. Sorry, folks. I'm still learning. Hey, Nina. What?
Hi. Sorry, I'm eating an apple. Okay.
Oh, really? Okay, so let's look at this painting a little bit that we just saw the video about. I wanted to have a picture that we could look at the whole painting. Something that I think is really, you know, in today's class, we're going to be talking, we're going to be working on a variety of different kinds of stripe paintings, which can seem like something that's very simple. But what's really interesting and unique about Rothko's work is the number of layers that it takes to get to his final product. Some of his paintings had over 20 or 30 layers. I mean, that is diligence. And it's also a vision. I did read in my research about Rothko that most of his paintings started with a yellow underlayer, that was the color. So we see that here as the yellow is kind of showing through in these areas down here. What I think is really impactful about this particular painting is the use of the dominant blue at the top. While it is the smallest stripe of them all, it's very weighted. I think it's very interesting, that choice. Again, though, that comes from that, like I said, that concept that Rothko believed that his work was, you know, metaphysical. He experimented with a lot of different kinds of painting, including a lot of different representational stuff. But these color field paintings is what they're called, were kind of where he ended and kind of what we know him for. His work obviously is very impactful. There is another artist that I wanted to share with you guys, kind of as a contrast, and who's often used as a contrast, really, not a contrast, but a different concept of how you can take something, you know, take an abstract painting and it have more meaning and emotional experience than we expect it to. And does anybody know Barnett Newman? Has anybody seen Barnett Newman's work? Well, we're going to watch a quick little MoMA video about Barnett Newman, and then we're going to talk about it. So I'm getting made fun of in my studio. Sorry, guys. I was going to say it's because I'm making fun of the Michigan accent. When you come back from Michigan, that's what happens. And it's also that it happens that it's Audrey's favorite accent to mimic. She slips into it kind of ridiculously. Okay, let's see if we can.
Guy sees the painter Franz Klein sitting down with a beer. Says, Franz, I just came from the new Barnett Newman show. Klein says, oh yeah, what'd you think? I haven't seen it yet. Guy says, it seemed pretty simple. Just a bunch of paintings with lines. Klein says, these paintings, they all the same color? Guy says, no. These paintings, they all the same size? Guy says, no. How about those lines? They all the same color, same size, same placement? Guy says, no. Klein says, sounds pretty damn complicated to me. In old master paintings, figure-ground relationships usually refer to the figure, say the Virgin Mary, and the ground, either the gold ground background of an Italian panel painting, or perhaps the landscape that is behind the Virgin's throne. In Vir Heroicus Sublimis, Newman has gotten rid of the Virgin. He's also gotten rid of the landscape. What he's retained is the illusionistic relationship between forms in space. Why are these lines vertical? It's because when we relate to each other largely as vertical forms. As soon as a mark is made on canvas, visually, one thing is in front of another. Newman referred to these things, if you will, as zips. And these zips are vertical lines which connect the upper and lower edges of the painting. And in this example, on the far left of the painting, by looking closely, we can actually see that the color of the zip was actually painted first, underneath the color of the ground. So that you might say, okay, a zip, a line, it's certainly in front of the ground, just like the Virgin is in front of the landscape behind her. However, by looking closely at this zip, you can realize that Newman actually reversed that relationship, because you're seeing that that zip is actually physically behind the ground. So how did Newman do it? Newman almost always used masking tape to construct his zips. Now, you'll notice first that I've painted a base coat, a very fleshy pink kind of color. One way that Newman made zips was to use masking tape over a base coat. Now, removing the tape, you'll see that the color of the entire painting has changed except for that area of the zip. Shifting gears and looking at this very dark zip towards the right side of the painting, this zip, because it's so dark on such a bright painting, almost looks like it has a depth, like it's behind the red ground, as if you could look into that space. However, approaching the painting, getting close, you realize that Newman has constructed this zip in a different way, so that where that tape bleeds under the masking tape, it's actually going out from the zip and into the red ground, meaning that physically, that paint is actually on top of the red ground. What we begin to get a picture of then is that Newman is making all of these subtle adjustments to these zips. None of them are the same, and none of them have the same relationship to the red ground of this painting. So when you stand from a good viewing distance away from the painting, you realize that these zips are competing with each other for your optical attention, so that one zip is quite loud and hits you in the eye directly, while other zips may be just flickering, barely there, and are very, very slow to attract your eye to them. In other words, there's a pictorial dynamism. There's a dynamic interaction between these zips in space. Newman invited the viewer to be 18 inches away from the painting. And because this painting is so huge, when you do that, your entire field of vision is dominated by the painting itself.
Okay, well, let's see if we can get rid of that now, right?
I just love that guy right in the middle, and you just see his head go.
I actually, that video, one of the things that really gets me about that particular video is that you can see the other piece on the side, you know, where the wall is. And I'm just like, how that one individual zip, I guess is what you would call it, looks in comparison to that massive painting. Because can we also talk about the size of that painting? So I lost my whole window. That's really just awesome, but that's happens. It's not the end of the world. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, I'm clearly still getting everything wrapped up in my brain. I have a show opening this weekend, so it can be a little bit. So I actually, what I did was I looked up, because I had never really known Barnett's work. And I looked up a bunch of them, right? Because now I'm interested in this concept of the zips. And I'm going to show you guys today some methods on how stripes are made and why the different methods that you use matter. But this particular type of work, I mean, it's not new. Stripes are not new. I am very interested in the methodology that he used, especially like this one right here, this Artway EU one, where it looks like the line is almost in the middle, but it's not really in the middle. It's just a little bit to the side of the middle, and the way that that plays with your brain, it really makes me think of Joseph Albers' work. And clearly this is just a further study of the work that Joseph Albers was already figuring out, which is how does color relate to itself? And what does the size, how does that imply how our brains interact with it? Like, look at the massive, this is so huge when you think about it. So I wanted to share, and something that I'm going to try and start doing is sharing some more contemporary artists with you, mainly because I want you guys to see, as we look through these techniques and we are introduced to these artists, how those movements have moved forward and how they might look in today's work. This is actually a Portland-based artist. We showed her at Cambium. And her work is similar to the concept of Rothko's work. She takes color very, very, very seriously, and she deep dives into her color. Her social media is clearly very, very curated, but she deep dives into her color, and she has entire mood boards every time that she is choosing a color. These are really fairly small paintings. I think they're like this big, most of the show didn't go bigger than this. She uses a natural mineral paint, and then she uses pan pastel on top of it to layer the work. So when you look at it in person, it almost looks like it's an encaustic work, but it's not encaustic work. It is for her, it's very spiritual work. These kind are right here are really popular with the thin line. And it's very dynamic. She surprised me in the show that we did of hers. Let me see if you can see the piece. It's this piece right here, which unfortunately you can't tell is close enough. She actually uses a pink to make the tan on top stand out more. And I was surprised by how attracted to that painting I was when it came into the studio, because it's a neutral. And honestly, like often I'm not attracted to works that are just like this, right? That are just ones, like a slew of colors, right? Blended or whatnot. But her work is very beautiful in person. People really connect with it, and they really find, I think it is a furthering of what Rothko was working on. Hers is more about material layers, whereas his was about pigment layers. But I'm interested to see where it's going and where she goes with it. I did also want to show you, okay, so this guy, Joseph O'Neill, is very interesting in that his work is similar to Rothko's in that he is taking colors, the emotion behind the colors. He's using these very monolithic pieces, but he actually puts the word out there for you. So, and his are done in pastel of some sort or some kind of crayon. I'm obsessed with his work, and it's very basic, when you consider it. What do these words mean? How are these connections that he is making between these color fields, especially like this Arctic one right here, where you can almost see the sun shining through on the blue right there. And then he just puts that word out there for you. They're so beautiful. I think that he is going in a new direction that we're going to be I'm very interested to see where he goes when you talk about development. Like this one right here is really beautiful to me. It surprises me how basics like color, like this bird one right here, you can see the yellow and the red and the green behind it, and he's clearly just done the blue over top of it. Layering choices are really hard decisions sometimes, and I'm very impressed with artists who make really sweet, intentional choices. So let me get out of this. Woo! Let me go back to my notes. Okay. I don't know a single person that doesn't like Rothko's work, because his work is magnificent. But my question for you, when you look at these types of works, do you find yourself struggling to find meaning in them, or are you just appreciative of the entire context and you're just like, that's a beautiful painting? You can shake your head. You don't have to answer because we're in lots of weird situations here. The reason that I ask you to think about that is that I'm going to show you some techniques today. And we're going to work on paintings that are similar, large color swap, to say. Something that I'd like you to do, you don't have to necessarily share this with the group, is when you're making your choices on your painting, a practice that I was once taught was when you're choosing your colors, rename the colors. The reason you rename the colors is because we look at magenta and we always see that it's magenta, but magenta also has meaning of a ton of different varieties. I think one of my favorite things about the watercolor sets that I use is that they've renamed them all into like ethereal names. You know, the names of their color selections are like woodlands, right? And so what I want you guys to do today, I'm going to show you some techniques on how stripes are done. We're going to go over the techniques that Barnett uses. We're going to go over some of the techniques that Rothko uses, and some of the techniques that Jackie Wood uses. And then what I would like you to do is I would like you to pick some colors for a stripe painting. This is going to be really hard because there's not a lot to hide in a stripe painting. You have to make some really serious choices about, like Barnett used, the size of your stripes. What impact is a tiny yellow stripe going to be on a big blue painting versus half of the painting being yellow and half of the painting being blue? And then I want you to rename the colors for yourself, because I want you to be thinking intentionally, what is the story that a striped painting can tell? And obviously, as we learned in the Barnett video, what does the orientation of the stripe, how does that change the painting? I think often for myself, because I am interested in stripes right now in a different kind of way. I'm interested in the uncovering that using striping materials can do. Okay, so we're going to talk first about, I'm going to show you some, hold on, let me get my camera spotlighted for everyone. Okay. So when I first started learning how to abstract paint, I was what they call a blender. And I was dating a girl who was like fourth generation painter who'd gone to a fancy art school. I was still learning even what it all meant. And she asked me on one of our first dates, oh, so are you a blender or a layerer? And at the time I thought, what a strange question to be asking somebody, right? Like I don't think I grasped the concept. So at the time I was a blender, and I was like, well, I'm a blender. Blending is what Jackie Woods does. That's when you have a color. I've kind of pre-selected my colors, and I have not renamed them, but I will. And essentially, I'm using a watered down acrylic pigment. You can use a watercolor, and you're creating dynamics by, using and mixing the colors on your page. Sunset is a great picture. It's a great concept of the waves. We do these things for Jackie Wood's work. Obviously, she uses a variety of stripes and sizes of those stripes to create interest. I got another weird color pink. Why not? Let's just do it, right? And she kind of, what makes them magical is that they overlap and they kind of blend together and create something kind of special. I didn't realize at the time that the reason she was asking me, honestly, layering takes a different level of kind of forethought. And it wasn't until I had been painting for a long time that my style changed a little bit more. I would not call this a color field study in the way that Mark Rothko's is a color field study. But what I'm going to tell you is that the blending process is where, you erase the transition from one to the other. Rothko did this because he intentionally wanted to see what happens when you use transparent pigments and layer them in a variety of ways, right? I like to use my scraper to scrape off the additional wetness because I feel like I can control the way that the pigment spreads, right? You'll see me do this a lot in my paintings, is as the paint is drying, moving it to make a more consistent thing. As we saw with Rothko's work, you know, brush stroke is somewhat erased. And I think this is probably my own kind of interest in doing the same thing. I don't tend to like a lot of texture. And see, like, I got this pool right here. A lot of people would leave that because it brings some like dynamics to it. To me, it just feels messy. And I'm likely to do something like this to make it look a little bit different. The question is, why stripe paintings? They challenge your ability to create good compositions because you have to be aware of the ways in which the size of your stripes affect the overall experience. You have to pay attention to color theory, and then they give you an opportunity to really spend some time and just discussing and figuring out what kind of stroke you want to have. This is a very watered down version of acrylic. I could continue and may continue to apply layers of each of these colors and just to thicken up my lines. Okay, this is a decision depending on what you want the color to look like, depending on the experience that you're thinking about, how you might be interested in this. The show that I was telling you guys that I've been doing is a blue show, which I never thought that I would do because blue actually isn't something I had a lot of interest in. But COVID changes things, and the experience of being socially isolated has made me think a lot more about blue. I also live in an area that has a giant, massive river on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other side. That connection, it is amazing how different the water can look. It's weird when the red algae comes through and it looks streaked with red. So I have this new interest in the color blue and what it means. Some of that work has been stripe work. I don't know why. I don't know what that interest is. Maybe it's a similar situation with what Rothko was going through. Okay, let's talk about the zips. So, striping. A lot of artists use masking tape. Isn't this the cutest little masking tape you've ever seen in your whole life? Look how tiny it is. Okay, it can do really tiny, tiny, tiny little lines. And I will tell you, I just did 40 by 40 in which I did lines that were this small. I tend to use this size a lot. We talked a little bit about when I said taping it down to create a border for yourself, because I think that makes it look nicer. What I want you guys to do is I want you to do some of your paintings in which you blend some of the layers, because there is a process in that is really special. This is going to be the kind of painting that you're kind of zoning in and out of, because it is very intuitive. It is very heartfelt. What you're thinking about when you rename these colors are going to change how you feel about these layers. But I also want you to consider masking off some of your paintings and seeing what happens when you pull up the masking tape. How are you going to split up? Like, again, I want you guys to think about smart design concepts using the thirds method. Or if you're going to be ballsy and do it half and half, make impact, right? You got to really show up if you're going to do that. Something that's also I would like you guys to consider is when you're doing a painting like this, where does the horizon line go? Obviously, I chose to do these lines horizontally rather than vertically, but remember that is a choice that we make. On this painting, I'm going to go all in with one of my big fat brushes. I got some blue here because I'm allowing myself to still do weird blue stuff. And I'm going to just do a first layer. And then I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to let my first layer dry and decide where I go from there. I'm going to work a little bit with this concept of kind of both of what Barnett and Rothko were doing, which is, Barnett was using layering to develop the colors on the stripes. I may alternate some of my stripes as well. What does that mean to change the directionality of the line? So my hope is that whatever materials you have today, you're able to work in, because stripes are difficult. People have expectations about them. They have experiences with them. We all know and love black and white stripe. So start with choosing your color palette, rename your colors, think about something that's going on in your life that you can put onto paper and that you can experience. And then let's get working on those stripes. I'm gonna share my progress photos in the WhatsApp now that we're actually working. I hadn't thought about the fact that it wasn't working yesterday. Any questions you guys have or any thoughts, I will definitely pop in on. Some things to think about, at least if you're using acrylic paint, you know, these kinds of paintings are great opportunities to really explore the material. How much water do you want to add? These are two entirely different paintings. One has no water, it's just straight acrylic paint. And one of them is a very watered down translucent version of that. It will be interesting to see how these develop and the decisions that you make. This is a great opportunity to experiment, try some new things. I find myself, when I am choosing color schemes for these kinds of things, be really smart and intentional about your choices, because the color is what's selling them. Does that sound good to everyone? Yay! Thank you. Awesome. Here we go. More weird paintings on Tuesday nights.
So what kind of paper do you use here? Do you use like the soft? Oh, not the soft. What kind of paper? Is it watercolor paper?
It is a watercolor paper. It is a 140 pound. It's a brand called Canson. I don't know if you can get that where you are.
Yeah.
Opinions about paper are this. I love this. So this one has tooth. So it is a cold press. Gosh, I always have to look at it to make sure that I know the difference. I like this idea that mixed media, I don't know if Canada has a lot of the mixed media papers, are coming out now, and they're creating kind of an in-between between the cold and hot press, you know? I like the tooth, but I'm not afraid to use a smooth paper. I think on this kind of painting, for myself, I'm going to be adding a lot of layers, and so I want a paper that's hardy enough. I never go less than 140 pounds. Or 300G. Also, this is a great opportunity. I had a painting performance this weekend with a dance company here, and I want to put it out there. If you're finding yourself watering your acrylic paint down a lot, don't forget about wetting agent. It really saves your pigment and it allows it to stay longer. So it's just a reminder. I know that you guys can't see me using it, but it's in my spray bottle and it's in my water often. Oh, another masking tip. I'm going to be remembering these things as I'm working today. I like to pull my masking tape up before the paint has dried fully. What I have learned in doing paintings where I use masking tape to protect areas rather than, say, the watercolor rubber stuff, is that it comes off better and it's less damaging to the paper if the paint around it is still kind of wet. So I like to let it have enough that I can move my fingers in there, but that it's still kind of wet. So that's just something to think about. You're going to find that when you work with this kind of stuff, that happens a lot. Something else that I've been thinking a lot about and using kind of masking tape for, and you can do a lot of different things, not just masking tape is, but what does it mean to uncover or protect a part of a painting, especially in something like this? What are you protecting? What is your intention here? Now I've got these raw stripes, you know, and this really dark blue. So anything I do in the next layers or whatnot will leak into that. I also, for some reason, am always very interested in the marks that my paint makes, especially with watercolor. just due to the nature of watercolor. And the fact that I haven't quite learned how to control it yet. Someday, maybe it's going to take me a million years of working with it, but someday. Okay. This is also another reminder. Sorry, I'm going to have a lot of this. Don't be afraid to when you're working on things like this and you're thinking about how you're layering thin transparent layers, don't forget that you can always wait until your acrylic dries and you can layer in watercolor too. Just remember that your watercolor needs to be one of your top layers. I do have some colors that I only have in watercolor, and there is something really rewarding about bringing them into my paintings last minute. I often have I have an orange that I will add to my blue just to give it a little bit of light. And it sits on top, you know, and it kind of almost floats on top because of the way that the acrylic paint cures. I'm gonna use my weird paint. I forgot this roll of tape for some reason. The top layer, I can never really see where the tape cuts off. Isn't that obnoxious? The sound of me pulling my tiniest, teeniest little tape startled my dog. About silliest little animal. Ah, failure. My tape has ripped off part of my paper. It's a heartbreak. I had such a beautiful painting, and now
Mine too.
you know, it happens sometimes.
Yeah, it's
It
all right.
actually happens more with the, ironically, with the cold press than it does the hot press because of the smoothness allows it to come off. Which is really sad because I had a really beautiful, weird little painting here. I guess that's part of what we do, though. That's as artists. Again, this painting was really just thinking a lot about the algae in the water and really the way that it takes a what feels like almost a black ocean at times and makes it eerily red and orange. And now I'm going to let it dry because now I don't know how I feel about it. But here is the, oh, I guess I could just do this. But here it is, it's pre-drying stage. I did paint over the section that tore off, even though it breaks my little heart. But we'll see. Let's see what we do later. I'm gonna let that dry before I add more colors and more layers. Sometimes this happens to me when I'm doing like projects like this, but I really suddenly hate this pink stripe and I have to like let it breathe for a little bit before I cover it in something. It's got a reason. It's got a reason. Oh, Les, I love yours. They're so beautiful. Ah, the little dots are so nice.
That's from the brayer. I took the brayer to the back because I wanted it to dry because I just have this watercolor pad.
It looks
just
so
got-
beautiful.
Thank you.
Something I've been really enjoying is using, I think we talked a little bit about this, using rice papers and painting them with acrylic, but soaking them in acrylic instead of painting them like the way that I'm painting them here. Actually having like, I have a tin and then I soak them in a watered down acrylic. And similar to some of your stripes where you get those little lines like that the brayer created, the little dots, you know, some of them dry like that. And last night I was working on some collages where I was cutting them into stripes and it was very interesting to me. Look at Jeannie go. She covered the whole paper. What? I'm interested to know for both of you, obviously, maybe it's just what you have, but what your reasons for the colors that you chose were.
Well, you were talking about water, so
yeah,
that water is always inspiring to me. Watercolors, and I don't mean watercolor paints. I mean the colors that you see in water are always very inspiring to me.
I once bought from that Primacolor, I bought a watercolor set that was just about water. 6 different colors of green, 6 different colors of blue. It's very interesting when you limit your palette like that and you choose something like green and blue are next to each other on the color wheel. They blend beautifully. Often in nature, when one is present, the other is present. You know, we use them shades and things like that. It's very interesting the calming effect that those 2 colors have, right? And maybe that's because they're related to water. I'm not sure if water was hot pink, would you feel the same way about hot pink? No. Living in the coast, I mean, water's what you think about, right? now I've got myself thinking a lot about that piece with Barnett with the horizontal, because that's how we address each other. And I think that's such an interesting way of looking at work. And when you're working that large, you know, because I tend to honestly create stripes that are like this direction. But it looks very different,
Yeah.
you know? And it is very lovely when you look at it, especially with that orange piece in the middle. Not really orange, but that color in the middle kind of glows differently, right? But then it you know, takes center stage in a different way. It's very interesting. I'm not always tied to one particular manifestation of the works that I'm working on. Like if I pick them up and move them and they look better in a new orientation, then I'm often will go with it. But it is definitely something to be thinking about.
No.
I need to reset my water. I started with some real dark colors, like a dork. Now I got to get my brayer out. Try Leslie's way. The answer to life, clean water. Okay. I have to say, I like the brayer method. It definitely changed the way that the top layer I had going looked, and I'm into it. I'm always interested in my own natural tendencies, and I was just looking at this painting and thinking about, you know, the next layer, obviously, and realizing that I always put blue on bottom. And now that I look at that other painting, I'm like, huh, what is the difference? How do I feel differently about it if I change what direction it is? It is interesting to have it on top.
All right, that's
Okay, I'm gonna try a new color, yellow. See what the difference is. Oh, yeah. It is interesting how different it looks when you change the directionality of it. Like the yellow and the blue into it. I'm always interested in yellow because it was a color I didn't really like for a really long time. And it's funny how you, over time, you find the kind of hue of the color that you like. As an artist, I definitely go through phases. Let's look at this one.
Sorry, I'm just jumping in here. And Leslie, your pieces look like you're at the beach. That's fucking awesome. Ooh, I like the paint, Carissa. These are really compelling. Ooh, Jean. Jeez. This is awesome.
Rothko's the man.
So Carissa, do they have to be vertical or horizontal stripes, or could they be crisscross?
You can even crisscross if you want to. I mean, that's where like the different artists have different connections to them. Obviously, Rothko liked this idea of the swatches because then you could layer different translucencies on top of each other. And then Barnett viewed the directionality, you know, to be this way because then you're looking at the painting as you would another human. And Mondrian liked them on a grid. So I think that I don't know that it has to go one way or another, but what it comes down to is asking yourself, like, what are you getting from the painting, right? What are you looking at? Oh, I just messed that painting up. Sorry.
Keep painting, keep painting.
No. It's funny. It was my hand. It actually, it's really funny. Like I'm trying to look at it the way that Barnett, you know, talked about with his zips. And I still find myself preferring the other direction. And it's really funny how we can get stuck on a composition like that, right? I was actually going to start adding a crisscross and seeing what happens when I add another layer on top of the layers that I already have, just to see, you know.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, what peeks out. And what I am trying to do when I do new layers is consider the colors, right? So that I'm not trying to layer like a bright yellow over top. Instead, I'm working with shades of blue, so to say. So I think it's just about experimentation at this point. I mean, today's lesson really is about how colors interact, how to develop deeper color palettes, deeper color swatches by actually taking the time to layer.
My fear is that too many colors will turn it into brown.
So that's where like we come back to that really handy tip that I told you in the first couple of classes, right? Stick to layering by temperature, cool or warm, or make sure that it's entirely dry. It's not going to turn brown unless it's wet on wet, right? So I make sure I'm either layering blue, green, purple on top of blue, green, or purple, or I'm layering yellow, orange, and pink on top of each other, or I'm letting them entirely dry. Actually, something that happened with this painting, no, it's one of them. I let the underlayer dry so that I could have a little bit of a kind of hazy, oh, it's this one. Ha. So I put yellow on top, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking for it to glow a little bit, but I let the blue dry entirely before I did that. And I still pulled up some of the pigment, which is what I'm doing with the paper, this other paper. When I put it on top of it and press it down, I'm just pulling up some of the pigment and some of the wetness so that I can control it a little bit better. So using one of those two rules, you should be safe and not make it brown.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. possible. It's probably not possible right now to get a good picture because it's still kind of wet. I like the angled lines. I also really like the red on the ends there, Jeannie. I'm interested in how you think that putting such a bold contrast at the end of your composition does for it. Definitely gives it a definite ending spot, right?
Yeah, well, it definitely grounds it.
Right.
So it's not so ethereal, you know, because all the blue and green can be very woo-woo ethereal.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree with you. I think that it's a really bold statement. I'm into it.
Thank
So
you.
I sent a picture. I wanted to talk about what Nina and I were just talking about, which is I've been layering some translucent yellow on top of this side of the blue. And I want to show you kind of how that's coming through, right? When we look at Rothko's work and we know that he has done 20 layers on it, it's because of moments like this. When you take the time to build the color, it becomes super complex. And you can see it in comparison to the blue next to it, which I painted that blue and just let it be, right? I'm not going in over it with any colors. Getting out the serious kid paint. I'm going to try it with a different tool to see the difference, because that's always an interesting experience. So really thick with my paint this time on this one. I used a completely different tool for texture, just to see how I feel about the different texture. What it does make me think about though is that I think I'd like to add a really thin line on this one of something super bold. So I'm going to use tape because I'm probably going to have to do several layers of it. I'm going to do it down here just to see what it looks like. I think I may go crazy and use this pink. Okay, let's see. Wild and woolly world. Did all that work to make it perfect. And then what did I do? I went outside the tape on more than one spot, and I'm going to leave it. Okay. That was a lot of work for a little tiny pink line. That's really imperfect and here. You know, it is what it is, right? It's interesting though, because I think I like the way that the tape sits on top with the second way of doing it.
I love the gold that's underneath.
Right, I layered several different colors of yellow.
No, when you pick up that painting, what's left underneath, like that.
Oh,
gold,
yeah.
the speckled gold is really cool.
Yeah, it's this from the. I know. I mean the texture, right?
Great. No, but I do love the depth of the gold too.
I like the harsh line on your painting less because that white feels so much crisper, even though it's white. With the,
I just put gray on it.
I love the gray. What are you talking about? It's beautiful.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I really like that one. Isn't it funny how a simple color choice like that can feel, you're just like, yes, with it. Into it.
Well, the tape is ripping up my paper, but I kind of like what it does to the edges, like on the top there.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to get really good at it. Usually I have like a knife, and what I have found is if you use the edge of a knife and you start in the like center or the side of it and pull out towards the edge of the paper, it doesn't rip as much.
Yeah.
It seems to me that the edge of the paper rips the most.
Yeah.
But again, it's a delicate dance, and you still, obviously, I got fingerprints all over this one, trying to make it work. I don't know what it is about pink with this shade of blue and yellow that I love so much, but it's definitely something I go back to into the depth on that one. Now we're just gonna offload.
Excuse me.
I used a pearlescent yellow. I don't even know how I accidentally ended up with one shipment of paint that's all shimmery and shiny. What is interesting about shimmery and shiny paint, though, is that when you paint on top of it, it's different, right? Because it's got additives in it to make it do that. So the way the other paint sits on top of it, something I actually pay quite a bit of attention to is what the effect of how different paint actually sits on top of the paper. meaning that if I use coffee, it makes it kind of sit up on the paper instead of be absorbed by the paper. Metallic paint kind of does the same thing. Very weird thing to be interested in. Oh. I'm going bold. I'm getting some black in there.
Yeah.
We're gonna see what I can do with it. I had a painting get kind of massively covered in black recently, and so I feel like I need to get better at how to manage when that happens. Okay. I'm going to try layering on top of this black and see if there's a way to make it glow a little bit.
Excuse me.
Oh, that one's really impactful with that white stripe in there. Good job. Looks so good. The pink's really nice too. I love how it bled over to the bottom of the pink part. Good job, Nina.
Thanks. My tape ran out in the middle, so it's a bit shorter, but I liked it that way.
I like it. I think it's really interesting. And I think you really get to see what happens when you put the resist down, the tape, and then you paint over top of it, how visually our brain automatically moves that blue up that barrier, right? It just fills it in because that's what we do.
Ah, yeah. I think it's true.
Really interesting. That's the reason we read the way we do, apparently, which is just fascinating to me.
Oh, what do you mean? That's the way we read.
It's actually the way that Americans and probably Canadians, I would imagine, are taught to read, is that they your brain gets used to kind of skimming the first two letters of the word and the last couple letters of the word, and it kind of fills in the middle for you. It's so that you can move faster.
Yeah.
To me, it's always kind of just a crazy, interesting concept. It makes me feel like almost robot-like, right? The way that we just fill in the blank, and most of the time get it right, or get it right enough.
Yeah, we are taught to skim, right? So
that's the intention, right? So that you can do things like drive or moving it and catching everything. Yeah, so we're taught to skim, and it translates in art too. If you pay attention to the way that you think about art, you'll see that your brain automatically fills in the blank. It's the reason that you look at clouds and you see a rabbit. They're all kind of taught the same kind of way. It's very interesting to me because as an abstract painter, a lot of times people want to reflect with you on what they see in your work. Oh, I see. And it's always things like sunset, a house, a figure doing something, even though the view from my living room window, definitely. The ocean. She gets to see the ocean from her living room window, in case you needed to know, or the river at least. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's funny. I caught myself when I was looking at your piece with my brain kind of automatically filling it in, and I was like, no, it's nice with the white and the impact in between.
yeah, I thought about filling it in, and then I just said I had taken off the tape, so I said forget it.
Oh, look at it. It's really beautiful. It's funny to me how something as simple as stripes can be so satisfying.
I think striped clothing is always in style, right? Striped t-shirts and yeah.
I love stripes. You will always get me with stripes. I always have a number of striped tops that I wear kind of consistently. Yeah, stripes always do it for me. I like stripes also, like rugs that are striped, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Leah's working hard on getting her studio ready for open studios. That's the reason she's gone so much today. Look at her go. I see her working hard.
Oh my God. Look at this thing. Every time I move something, it hasn't been moved in 2 years. It's disgusting. I rely on open studios to force. Ooh, I love that blue.
Oh, me too. It's my favorite.
That's pretty.
Open studios to keep me cleaning my studio at least once a year.
That's why they always say you should invite people over, because then you clean up your place.
Exactly. I just invite 4,000 people over.
Or you could go away for vacation and have your girlfriend's mother house at your mother, and you come back and it looks like an Airbnb.
Oh my word. They can stay with us anytime, Carissa.
Yeah, she was a professional cleaner, and she even had like folded our toilet paper. She had reorganized things. Like you go into the utensil drawer and they're all faced and organized. And I'm just like,
Wow.
bonkers. And then she's so funny about it because she's also like, she doesn't want to offend anyone. So she's like, I hope, upset you. And I was like, no, you did all these weird like cleaning jobs I just hadn't gotten to. Like that one cupboard you always know you have to clean out. You're like, when I came back and it was cleaned out.
Wow. That's a gift.
It was a gift.
This gift.
Maybe invite her often to just go away for the day.
She was so cute with the dogs. She took care of our dogs while we were gone. They were spoiled rotten.
So the dogs were not upset when you came back.
I mean, obviously Snacks very much missed Audrey, kind of followed Audrey around for a couple of days, like making sure she wasn't leaving again. But Julie was like, I got walks on the beach. My grandma fed me extra treats.
Awesome.
Which is, I mean, about the best you could ask for.
Yep. But you got a little staycation.
She did. She actually also got the most adorable new toy while we were gone. I ordered it so that it would be delivered while we were in Detroit. And it is a weird little like cloth log that has a bunch of swirl toys that fit in it. And then she gets to like pull them out and play with them. She loves the dang thing because she's a breed that's all about catching small rodents. So it's very primal for her. I'm super interested in all these darks. Now I'm adding all these kinds of darks to figure out, like, it makes me think of the whole thing about making the blackest black, they're chemically trying to produce a paint that absorbs the most amount of light. It's very interesting technology behind paint when you think about it in that way. Even if the guy doing it's a complete total poop head. It just reminds me, what was I just reading? Oh man, I lost it. Do you follow NFTs at all, Leah?
I'm just starting to get into that. So nothing specific, but I know what you're talking about. So what are you thinking about?
It's just wild to me. NFTs are wild to me.
Oh yeah, and what is happening with art and this idea of like a non-fungible, like, I'm fascinated by it.
I'm super fascinated by this concept that in theory, people will be like, would you like to look at my art collection? Let's go through my phone together.
Yeah.
I'm also, because that's what it is, but I'm also super interested in this concept of like legitimate ownership.
Yeah.
Meaning, that they have records and the way that it might impact like fraudulence. It's just very strange to me. I remember what I was thinking about. I was thinking about Banksy selling an NFT.
Yes.
Wild to me.
Yeah. Yes.
To have.
Go ahead.
To have an artist that is so much about like the resistance and this tangible product on a, usually on buildings or like, and then to have an NFT, just wild to me.
You guys know what we're talking about?
Yeah. I didn't realize Banksy had done that. Yeah.
Recently.
I think he does it just because he's expected not to do it.
Yeah.
I think that guy is kind of just a master of, figuring out how to.
It ended up being twofold. It ended up being an NFT that he created about a piece that they thought had gotten lost, and it turns out that Banksy had it.
That's a very Banksy like way to go about this whole thing. It's lost. No, it's actually in my drawer.
I have it. Well, it's too big for a drawer. It was one that, because like, I mean, Banksy in general, the whole concept of some of the things that people do for Banksy work, like pulling down parts of buildings and stuff, like that level of art fanaticism, I don't understand.
Right.
So that's where the NFTs come in crazy to me. I mean, maybe it's because I've just not.
I think it's paying for the ultimate art experience. I think that's what you're doing. And a lot of them are paying for it with Bitcoin and things that they bought that have turned into money that they didn't expect to, you know what I mean? Like, so that's part of it. Like,
Well, it's the same thing as it always is, right? It extreme, I think it's technically falls under nepotism. Really what it boils down to is you have so much money, you have nothing else to do, but by spending it on a digital product.
Yeah. And why not? Like, right? If you were somebody who made that, particularly if you made that money off a digital product, if you made that money off of like something that.
It's interesting. Digital currency is interesting because you want to talk about hiding money.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of money that's getting lost in, and art is always tied into money laundering.
Money laundering. Yep.
Mhm.
Art and clothing.
Yeah. Or that. Did you read that really interesting article about? I think it's the Dutch artist who got commissioned by.
Oh yeah. Did you guys see this?
No, can you share?
Go ahead.
He's commissioned by a museum to reproduce 2 pieces for the museum. Essentially what the artist does is takes the $83,000 and tells them that him taking the money is the art piece.
Oh my God.
Than the art he's going to produce. And it's supposed to be like looking at the ways in which museums take advantage of artists by underpaying them.
Yeah.
Basically stating that with the cost of his studio and the cost of his assistants, he wouldn't be able to recoup the money.
Right. So he just keeps in the money. I know, isn't that, and they actually have a space in the museum that's blank. Where like the paintings should have been, but are not there.
So now they're negotiating. So it's not technically theft. It's actually breach of contract.
Right.
Which breach of contract doesn't fall into the same criminal charges that theft does.
Right.
So, very interesting to me.
Well, yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. It is really true. I'm thinking about how you can be a really good artist and very skilled and very sought after and have no money.
Always.
Frustrating that is. Yeah, I was thinking, like I said, I think I've shared with a couple of you guys the story of Amy Sherrod, who was the woman who painted Michelle Obama's portrait.
Yeah.
African artist. And I recently read somewhere, because there was a grant I was looking at that Amy got, because when she got the commission for Michelle's portrait, she did not have the money to pay her studio rent. So she needed a grant of 25 or 30, some amount of money to be able to do this commission. Like, right? She couldn't fucking pay her studio rent. And I'm like, that's true, because you don't get paid on a commission mostly until the end. You certainly don't get paid enough.
You're definitely fronting it, right?
Expenses, and it's awful. Like, it was like, here you are. I was like, oh my God, that's my life all the time. But like, her, like, at the level that she is, at what she's being asked to do, like, it's just absurd.
It's such a funny world. You think a lot about it. I love sharing art with people and I love selling art, but I can't get my brain wrapped around trying to do something on like an international level, or, that kind of world that exists. The West Coast is so behind all of that. It's still so far behind what New York is doing, and even Detroit, and the experience of selling art in those places, you know, like I'm just like, I just would never last in that world.
No.
Christia,
Yeah.
I got bored with this one and I did stuff to it and I like it now. Can you take a look at it?
Yeah. That sounds like the perfect example of how working with abstract art always goes. Oh my gosh. So it's wow.
I just squirted it with a squirt bottle and then took a paper towel and just smeared circles in it.
I love it.
that.
I think
I like it much better now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point though. Like we're not supposed to be finishing these quickly. There's supposed to be several layers so that you can have experiences like that. You know, abstract art is always it's this skill level that you're trying to create enough vocabulary in your brain to do. And so that comes from experiments like this, because you're going to remember in the future, oh, I'm bored with this. I don't really like this so much. The last time I was in that place, I did this thing to it and I liked it better. I think it looks way better. I actually like where it went from being kind of soft blended lines to kind of harsher lines and then back to this other version. I'm super into it. I'm excited for you.
Yay. Thank you.
Also, Leslie, that gray and yellow piece is so beautiful. So beautiful. What a great variance of lines. It's I live in a foggy place, so I have an attachment to the color gray. And I especially love it with that yellow. It's funny how even like I talked about, we were talking about filling in words and the way that our brain fills in information about artwork. And I do that. I'm looking at this yellow and gray and white painting, and immediately I'm translating it to an experience, an emotional experience that I had. That performance that I did this Saturday was with the creative director from a local dance company. And we had practiced the experience where it was a 28-minute set of music. There were a couple of cues, and some of the things were like in the beginning, I was working and she was just kind of waking up as a dancer, you know, and you're choreographing this because it's improv, and we're choreographing it. And so we did it the first time with paint, and then we were working on it, and then she discloses to us that she's going through some really hard things in her life. And, you know, just to let us know, because when you're doing that kind of intimate, connected, creative act with another person, you share those kinds of things, right? And it's amazing how, and then there was this moment in our actual dance, she said to me, so I may cry a little bit during the rehearsal, but I won't cry during the performance. And actually she did great during the rehearsal, no crying. And I thought, okay, here we go. We're okay. And then she actually started to cry during the performance a little bit. And the painting that I did the second time is so much darker than the painting I did the first time, because you're having that exchange of energy, right? And she's having this hard time. She's going through this really difficult part in her marriage, and it shows through inevitably, even if you don't intend for it, even if, you know,
You're trying to control it so that nobody will see it, and you cannot hide it. You're right.
Not hide it.
You can't hide it.
Art is there. Shows all your secrets.
Well, it's looking better in here, you guys. Better. Not great yet, but
Melissa's got the easy peasy job because her side is just the same.
yes. And she's also, she's going to put up, I'm excited for her. She's going to put up some watercolors she's been working on this year as well. They're beautiful.
That's nice.
Yeah. 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 Everybody's I can feel it. Everybody's very excited. They're all like, no one wants to hold, you know, everyone's sort of cautiously optimistic. No one wants to.
I'm optimistic.
I'm super optimistic. Maybe over optimistic.
I'm sitting here talking my head off and I'm totally muted.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, blah, 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 blah.
Leslie, I agree with everything you just said.
Oh, everybody's laughing at me now.
No, we're nodding our heads, going, yes.
No,
you're
it's
right."
Mike. My boyfriend. My boyfriend. Sounds so silly. He's my boyfriend.
Hey, Mike.
Leah says hi, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know if you
So-
saw it this week, but there was a huge email blast, your artwork on it that went.
Oh, really? Well, I didn't get it. And I don't think it was in my spam.
I didn't send it out. Janet just sent it out and lots
Oh.
of people looked at it because I couldn't end up using your video. It didn't really work without your face. So I ended up making you the newsletter of, I'll send you, it looks amazing.
Can you resend it? I didn't get it.
Totally. I'll totally.
Apparently, lots of people are looking at it. So now you're work famous with your art.
Thousands of people have looked at it on the Reuters front. Thousands.
No, they
Never
haven't.
seen an email have that much response.
If five have looked at it, I'll be very happy.
Like a couple thousand. I'll take a look on MailChimp and say exactly.
Last time she told me about the numbers, it was 2,000. So I don't think she's BSing yet.
Where is this, Leah? I'm like lost. I swear.
Something I send out to.
I think it's because I ate the whole apple. I'm like done. I was so hungry because I didn't eat dinner. Anyways, but so I sent another one, Krista, but I had this one already, so I just painted lines over this bird.
Let's take a look. I can't wait. I got all kinds of pieces in various forms of drying right now.
So, oh yeah, it's a bird. So Leah, is this on our website? Is this an email?
I'll
you
send it to
sent
you.
out?
I'm finding it. Hang on. I'm finding it.
Do you like the bird?
I do like the bird. I like that you were just like, I have this thing that's not working and I would like to try something else.
Yeah, I didn't like the bird last week when I did it, and it was on hot press. So
I'm into the stripes over top of it.
Hello.
You wonder what's behind it. It makes you consider, like, what is the intention with this object behind? I like it.
thanks.
Hey, people, I'm gonna leave because my phone's gonna die in like 2 seconds.
Great
So,
work today.
Thanks.
Leslie.
This was a great class. Thank you for the reminder, Leah.
You're
That was
welcome.
nice.
Yeah.
I was very relaxed today. So
I love hearing that. This was a good class for
it was
relaxing.
totally a great class. All right. I'll see you guys next week.
See you
Take it
later.
easy.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, hang on. I'm about to send it to you.
Is it an email? Yeah, I know. And thanks for the reminder. I'm gonna have to go in a minute as well. But Leah, I tried to change the images that I'd put on that site, and I couldn't change titles, and I didn't have titles,
Oh,
but
really?
like
Don't worry
medium
about it.
and stuff. I couldn't put like.
Can't get in
Yeah.
there and edit it. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. It turned out really well. I just sent it to you. See if you got
Oh,
it.
by email. Okay.
Christia, do you like the drips I just put on it? I'm
I like
liking this more and more the more I just dry it.
See?
Are
Why
you gonna
not?
frame it? Are you gonna frame it? It would look really cool framed.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm all about the drip. I think that
Oh, I like that.
yeah.
I love the drips.
You feel less bored with it?
Yes. Well, the stripes were all just too even.
I think that you would enjoy this process that some abstract artists do when they paint with acrylic on canvas and or wood panel. And you do something like that, you let it fully dry and then you sand it. And so what the sanding does is it removes part of the top layer and exposes what's underneath it. So you can work several layers, full layers, and then you go through and sand it. You have a little bit less control with that process, but the dimensions that it
But you
gives,
get really interesting stuff
Yeah.
out of it.
yeah. You have to just be careful that your surface is something that can be sanded.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Hey, Carissa, what's your hours at the gallery? Are you guys open on Thursdays?
We are open on Thursdays. We're open until 5 o'clock on Thursdays.
Okay,
Generally 7 to 5.
7 to 5. Okay, because of the copy. Awesome. I'm wanting to bring out Janet and Michelle next week to come and visit you. And I think it's either going to be Wednesday or Thursday. We're going to trek out there. So
Wednesday, I work in the food cart, but other than, that's
yeah,
reality.
Thursday. So I think Thursday, that's what I thought. I figured Thursday would be the best day.
It'll be
Thanks,
nice.
Leah. I see it now. I see it.
That's great.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Took everything. Oh, that's beautiful.
Of all of these weird stripe paintings that I made.
I love it.
Oh, let's see.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It glows. It does glow.
And it's got a little spot. You guys can't really see it. Maybe I'll see if I can get a photo, but again, it's wet, so it's impossible to get decent photos of wet paintings. But it's got a little tiny red dot and it's really nice.
Let's
Okay,
see.
we'll see if we can.
Almost 2,000 people have looked at that, Nina.
How many people?
1,000.
2,000.
No, you're kidding. I think you're
Yeah.
kidding.
Leah, this is the Reuters Art Show?
No,
What-
it's that newsletter that I send out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That so Janet.
Thanks.
So when I can see, so I send out a newsletter each week talking about trying to inspire people. Basically, people are mostly inspired by seeing either our teachers' work or seeing student works. And so, because I couldn't use Nina's work in the video that I made, I decided to put it in the newsletter, and Janet forwarded it and it had 1,783 opens.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Lots of people looked at that. Lots.
Oh
of
my gosh.
You should
Wow.
send it out to everybody. Send it out to everybody. Send it out to all your people you know.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
my. Let me just post. Oh, can I do a blog posting for myself? Can
Yeah.
I take this and put it into the hub, our internal thing, and do it as a personal posting?
Yes, please.
Gotta figure out how to do that now. Okay.
You tell me, but it's really great. And it was, I thought, and I had this great interview from you. So I just pulled quotes from, oh, look at that ochre. Ah,
That
love
looks
it.
beautiful.
That's
I like that.
Yeah.
That's the secret to do lines with that thing. Thank you, Leah. This is great. I love it.
It's neat. It's really neat. Yeah. 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 Please do put it it would be great if you put it on the central hub. The more different ways it's kind of out there, the more people will see it and want to do it. There is a show tomorrow at 9 a.m. There's a kind of, for Reuters, if you want to join, there is a Reuters art show that will be at 9 a.m. My time, noon, your time, and your time, Jean and Nina. If you want to pop in, that'll be for the European crowd, mostly. And we're just going to look at what did we do? We just talked about the program and we looked at the entries, and I got this great 7-minute video that my editor made with Gina Chua's work and talking about, Gina gave a great interview. Gina Chua, by the way, Carista, is like the big cheese, Jean's former boss, big cheese at Reuters, like now the second in command of
The executive editor, yeah.
of the entire newsroom, of I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000.
And she's the one who has approved all the payments for the class.
Yes, for the classes, and she fucking loves the class. So, oh, hot pink! Oh my God, yes!
I think this is my favorite one so far.
Yes!
That Carista has done. Yeah.
yeah, right. Isn't that like, woo?
Fucking great! I love it. Yeah, girl, just do it.
So we're gonna do abstract landscapes for the next couple of classes.
Ooh.
I look at different ways that different artists do abstract landscapes. I think it's always a fun class. It's always a kind of a fun topic because we experience landscapes every day of our life, no matter where you live or what you're doing. And it's always kind of interesting to look at different ways that artists have expressed landscapes, and not necessarily in the way that you might see Leah do it or the way that a representational artist might do it, but how we're going to play with horizon line and things like that. So if you liked the stripe class, then you will probably like the landscape classes.
All right, that sounds great. We're at about 5:25, so everybody
Okay.
make your last changes. Jean, I love the colors there. That's stunning. I just love
I
how
love
these are
Jean
looking.
all day. My goal was to get Jean to cover the entire page with paint, and she did. And she loved it, and that was
Ah,
But then I squirted it and got some white space back, but now,
Oh, Carissa, that's just yum yum.
yeah.
I hope you pop that in a frame and sell it.
Jeannie, you could actually paint that over again, the entire thing with another color and add another layer if you wanted.
You could totally just I would let it dry fully, and then I would
Yeah.
really find something. A purple might be interesting with it because it's so green, and purple really is a great complementary color for green. I have all kinds of weird paintings that I have done in this class. I'm probably just gonna do a weird online exhibition of all of my weird teaching paintings.
I think that's a great idea. Like maybe we should do it. Maybe we should do it as an auction or something for the roaming studio. I'm trying to think of something fun we can do at the end of the year. Maybe teachers will put their demos up for sale or something, like for, I don't know, auction. I think that could be fun. I have a ton of demos.
Love those.
I really think so.
Love.
Those are great. Yeah, those are really, really good.
Ah, that pink. God, it's perfect. It just I feel like that pink does for me what a happy song does. It like lifts my mood completely right in the moment.
This painting and I didn't like it. And this is where knowledge of color becomes so important. I didn't like it against this color. It washed it out. It doesn't look as vibrant. I like it with, this is actually a vinyl. It's called flash paint. It's actually like a vinyl paint. I use it for my top layers on my own abstract works, and it will stay thick like this and textured like this, but it won't be shiny. And the pink with
It's gorgeous.
Black and that color, amazeballs. It's just like, I've been thinking about this a lot because I've been thinking about how art, what does art, because I'm watching people walk into art studios. I'm watching people walk into my studio, and I'm noticing the immediate lift that happens. And even when it's a sty, I can feel like a person's heartbeat, like faster. You can see it. They start kind of like it's kind of really amazing, and it's very hard. It's not something that happens in a gallery. Well, sometimes, but
I agree, because what I was going to say is one of Cambium's, part of our mission is the idea that we believe that art makes communities healthier. And it's because of exactly what you're talking about.
yeah.
It gives people a place to emotionally process things.
yeah. Good, right? And it's exciting. And when you see where it's made, you cannot like I said, I was talking about how I'd set up a TV interview earlier in the day. And before the guy walked into the art studio where he was going to do the interview, he was like, listen, I just want you to know, we don't have that much time, blah, blah, blah. And then he walked in and just went, and stayed for an hour. About everything and talked to it was so charming. He was completely captured. And I said, do you see why I have so much trouble writing a press release? I cannot possibly tell you what it feels like to be in a studio right now. So every time I see it, I'm watching people have this reaction, and I'm thinking, this is an important reaction. It's good. It's like really good. It like makes people feel good and excited and flushed and like, I don't know, like, kind of. Whereas I think making art kind of does the opposite. It brings your heart rate down. It slows you down. It like calms you. It like, sometimes it excites you, but most of the time you just get kind of in the zone. And you'll see this if I'll put the video up for the roaming studio. This thing, one of our students was wearing a heart rate monitor on her finger, a ring. And she said when she does art class, It totally says by the end of the class that she's resting. She's in rest state.
Wow.
She's in rest state.
Wow.
Literally says rest state. And like she's just sitting here doing her painting and doing her drawing, and she looks over and it's like resting.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Krista, thank you as always for a great class. It's great to have you back.
Good to be back. Nice to see everybody's face in real time.
And I guess we will talk after, I'm sure we will be talking in the next couple of days.
Got things going on.
Bye, everybody. Great work.
Thank you.
Hi.
Wonderful work.
Bye.